Brian Burke of Sportsnet joining us in studio. Great to see you, Brian.
Good to see you.
Aren't you glad we don't have to talk about Mitch Marner anymore?
Yes.
All right, so what are they going to do with Frederick Anderson?
They're going to start him 60 times.
Start him 60 times, yeah. No, seriously, let's land on kind of the story that everyone's talking about. That does affect a bunch of other communities around the hockey world in Canada. Marner, who won the negotiation if you had to pin a winner? Knowing full well both sides probably gave a little bit, and that's not how negotiations work, but I want to declare a winner. So who do you think won?
Well, I think you'd have to say that I think the process was flawed going back to William Nylander. I think that they needed to hold the line there. And again, it's very easy to second guess a GM. And I like Kyle Dubas. I think he's a really good guy. I think he's really smart. But I think the blueprint that I laid out was the one they should have followed, where they had to kick William Nylander's ass till his nose bled. And they had to save money on him and make it clear to the next two players that they were going to fight over money. And I never apologized to my players for fighting over money. I said, you know, it's a cap system. So you're going to have to fight for your money because I'm not keeping it. And the owner's not keeping it. It's going to other players in the room. So on this team, with their salary structure, this is not out of whack at all. And they got 6 years, which I think is really important.
Okay, so then the $11 million question is whether or not you can win with three forwards making $11 million and that much percentage of the cap.
It's worse than that. It's four players at 40.
Right.
It's four players, if you include William Nylander, who are at 40 million, half the cap. And so, to me, I can't see this. I think that if you look at what they've done, and let's start with the player they signed is going to make $1.8 million US for each of the next 22 months, the way this contract is scheduled. But this is a really important player, and he's a good kid. I think it's really important that they signed him. So, and again, with their salary structure, because it was flawed, it's not out of whack what they're paying him. But to me, I don't know how you do this. If you look at the other changes they made, and I like some of them, I'm not sure it's an upgrade. It's a big churn, first of all. 7 new guys or 6 new guys, 8 new guys. Yeah. And when you churn that much of your team, there's usually some time getting some cohesion with the new players, where they learn their teammates, you get familiar with the city and the whole thing. So I'm not sure there's an upgrade, the guys they brought back. You know, I like Tyson Barrie, I like Cody Ceci, but I like Jake Gardiner a lot too, and I thought Ron Hainsey played some real good hockey here the last couple of years, and Zaitsev was never appreciated here, but is a good player. So I'm not sure it's an upgrade, the rest of the group. So they got the core back. They're tied, their hands are tied so tightly on the cap. I'm not sure that if they get banged up, they'll be able to address it. They're thin on defense. It's just a really tough situation to have no cap room. And they might be, I could see them before Christmas having to play with 17 guys if the cap situation got bad enough.
Well, they're banged up now. I mean, Hyman's going to miss 12 to 14. Travis Dermott, 12 to 14. I mean, these are, you know, these aren't your upper echelon dudes, but from a depth standpoint, considering what you just laid out, I mean, there's an element to Leaf Nation here that I think needs to start to absorb the notion. This might be a rougher start to the year than some people expect.
I think so, but I think this too. I think they've got the key guys signed up. Kyle's vision for how they play, they've got the right players for that. I don't share that vision. I think they're too small, and I think they're not gritty enough. Ben Harper helps in that regard. But, I mean, they're going to miss Zach Hyman. He's a physical player on this team. So what Kyle's vision is, though, he's got the key guys in place. They stay healthy. They had 100 points last year. They've gotten better each of the last 3 years. This is a team that will be a force again. I think it'll be a really good team again.
Is there any point in this where, if you're the GM, there's not a lot of, according to reports, no movement clauses outside of Tavares. Do you have to see how this works and then reassess, given how much you're paying all these guys? Like, could you see one of them being traded in the future?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the likely casualty here is William Nylander for me, because that money, the way they structured his contract, which was smart by Kyle, his cash is $5 million, the cap hits $7. Right. So he wouldn't have gotten very much value for him last year, but I think that, you know, if he has a good start, that's a guy, if he got banged up, you could move and get a defenseman back.
But to get this distraction taken care of, big picture, regardless of what the number is, how important was that for Kyle and Coach Babcock out in Newfoundland?
I think very important. And I think, again, we go on these shows and it sounds like we're ripping the Leafs.
Right.
And we're not. If you go back, since Brendan Shanahan got here, and Lou, now Kyle, Mike Babcock, the team has gotten better every year. And there's no reason to think that they're not going to have another good year. I don't see them falling off their performance last year if they stay healthy. The question is the depth And are they better? Are they better than they were last year? Are they? And I hear people say, oh, they're all in on the season. Well, all in, if you play a lot of cards, all in isn't usually a good bet. It's usually your short stack,
Right.
and you get one good card, and you're just praying that someone doesn't have a
It's like
pair.
going to casino with Eugene Melnick.
It's not a situation you want to be in. It's not a bet you want to make routinely. It's a long shot generally. So people say they're all in. If they stay healthy, will they score enough goals to win a lot of games? Yes. Have they got a premier goaltender? Yes, in my opinion. Have they got a good top four defense? Yes, in my opinion. But I think that's where it stops.
Right. I like the Mohegan Sun, by the way, 6-0.
We gotta go, apparently. It's
All
a
right.
good time.
Earlier in the show, I was talking about the spots that Calgary, Vancouver, and Winnipeg are in, where they're paying youngsters more than they're probably going to pay youngsters more than they're paying their established leaders. So Besser more than Horvat, who we all kind of think will be the next captain in Vancouver. In Calgary, Monahan, Giordano, and Gaudreau are all on pretty team-friendly contracts right now. You're going to bring in Matthew Tkachuk. I don't know what the number will be. Probably more than any of those guys, including the reigning Norris Trophy winner. And then in Winnipeg, you have Scheifele and Wheeler on pretty good deals, and people are talking about Laine at 8 or 9. Some have even suggested 10. Can that be a problem in the dressing room when you go and give a kid more money than your established leaders?
Well, what puzzles me along the same lines is how the voting breaks down in the Players Association. There's 20 guys in the room. Only 1 or 2 guys, in this case here, 3 or 4 guys get big, long-term, fat contracts. And the other 16 guys have to divide up whatever that pie is left. And I don't know how, if I were a player rep, I'd be like, wait a second, let's look after the 16 guys too. So maybe it's a 4-year entry-level system. So these players don't get to hit the big jackpot after 3 years. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that the rank and file were pushing hard on this. There would be some kind of change on this, but I don't sense that they are. I think the union's theory is the rising tide raises all the boats, or whatever Bob Goodenow used to say.
Right.
And I don't sense any malcontents or discontent over that issue.
Even from the older guys, because it seems like now the kids are even taking from the UFAs. The RFAs, you're getting paid for your potential instead of what you've done. People complain about what you've done, but at least it was older guys who had won things. Like the Leafs haven't won a playoff series.
Well,
you have 3 guys making, or 4 guys making $40 million.
And my view is, I would much rather, when I was being a GM, I would much rather pay veteran players than young players. I'd much rather pay a Mark Giordano than a Matthew Tkachuk. So I'm with you on that. I don't sense that that's how the voting is lining up on the union side. It used to be they'd say, hey, kid, go in and get all you can. And I don't think they say that to them anymore.
Right.
I'm not sure everyone's holding their breath and hoping that these guys all get big dough.
I was suggesting earlier that it could cause a problem in the dressing room. Could you see that where a guy like Scheifele's in there making $6 million, and listen, I love Scheifele, I love the player, I love the character of the guy, but it would kind of gnaw at me if this guy was making $3 million more than me. Can that upset a room?
It can, but I think hockey players in general are such team-oriented guys that wouldn't be a factor. You know, I don't know Mark Scheifele very well. I love him as a player. I say hi to him.
Yeah.
But my guess is no. That's the game. You got your money. Now let's go earn it.
Right.
One last thing before we leave Winnipeg is Laine generally. So Patrik Laine is now at SC Bern in Switzerland, and hopefully the Jets don't get burned in this, and he's trying to make sure he doesn't get burned in this. Is he laughing or not?
Don't worry, I couldn't
He's not
read
laughing,
earlier,
is he?
so you're
He's
in
not
good
laughing.
company here.
He's not laughing. How does this story play out? Because I don't think there's a guy in the league like Laine. Like, do you? What's the number that gets it done? What does Chemeldayoff have to do with him?
Well,
'Cause I don't understand that player at all.
Well, the problem is that Patrik Laine is great at scoring goals, and when he's not scoring goals, he's flat out a liability. He's not a good defensive player. He's not a dogged, determined back checker. He's not a good forward checker. He doesn't use his size, but he scores goals. And even in streaky, even in a year last year where he might have gone 20 games without a goal, he still ended up with a good number.
Yeah, right.
So it's a quality, it's an ability that we've always paid for. My guess is he's going to come in on some kind of a bridge deal. And I think you see like Charlie McAvoy, who comes in at a reasonable AAV, but the qualifying offer, the last year of that contract, the qualifying offer is $7 million. So they've got to, and they're going to qualify him. He's going to be in his prime. Now he gets a qualifying offer and he's got arbitration rights, and he's starting at 7. So it's going to be north of 7 when he gets. So Timo Meier signed a similar contract. That's my prediction. I don't think Winnipeg throws money around.
Well, that's so. I mean, you look at what Clayton Keller got in Arizona, and you look at Kyle Connor, and if you're a Winnipeg Jets fan or Kevin Cheveldayoff, you're like, what the hell do we do with this? Because they don't have a lot of room there, and they have these 2 guys. And if you're looking at Keller and Connor,
But you see the last couple of days. So Werenski signed.
yeah,
Charlie McAvoy comes in at a good number. I think teams can still hold the line and maintain their salary structures and still not be in cap hell. It's just not the model that's been followed here. You know, they said here we're going to look after the top guys, and if the Leafs do the proper, you know, what the whole analytics revolution is, we'll find guys to fill out the roster
Right.
who are competent players at entry-level salaries, and it might work.
right. So those bridge deals with the big qualifying
Yeah,
offer
I
at the end.
I predict that you'll see a bridge deal for Laine. I'm not sure about Kyle Connor.
Right.
Before we let you go, the NHLPA a few hours ago confirmed they will not opt out of the current CBA. They had the option, if they triggered it today, the CBA would have ended a year from now. Nobody wanted to see that. So we're going through 2022. Burke, your general thoughts on this?
It's great news. I mean, the NHL said they weren't going to reopen the deal, a week, 10 days ago. I thought the union would follow suit. The NHL handed them an olive branch. The industry's in good shape. Players are making good money. The cap's gone up a lot. I think it was, $39 million my first year with the cap in Anaheim?
Right.
38, something like that. So it's at 82 now or whatever. I'm not surprised at all. And this gives them time to make a deal. It doesn't mean we won't have a work stoppage, but it gives them time to make a deal. My information is they've already made significant progress toward a new CBA.
Oh, really?
That's great news.
And I assume on hearing this today, not to bury that lead, that's pretty significant. I'm assuming the Olympics conversation has already been kind of squared away for China in 2022?
I don't think it's been squared away. It's a point of contention. The owners don't want to go to the Olympics. And if they took a vote, the last time I was in the room and they took a vote, it would have been 28-3 to not go.
Right. And the players are almost on the other side of the boat.
Yeah.
That'll be really interesting when we break it down. Time flies when you're having fun. We really burned through this segment.
Jesus Christ.
Opening night, October 2nd.